First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Meteorologist Robert Speta. We got plenty to talk about out there today. Of course, we're taking a look at the tropics. You can see the elephant in the room. That is that area coming off the coast of Africa. Now, a moderate risk of tropical development, and a lot of the guidance really indicating that we're probably going to get a storm, and dare I say a full-on hurricane, I will say it, off of the east coast of the United States. The big question is exactly when, where, and how strong, but I do believe there is a likelihood there's going to be a storm. The other topic today is a weather impact alert across North Florida and South Georgia due to this big old trough. You can kind of see it on the satellite imagery there. And here's a look at the current radar. It is not an organized tropical system, but definitely a very tropical atmosphere, a very moisture-rich atmosphere that's bringing in passing showers and just these waves of rainfall. Flood advisory has been issued along coastal areas of southeast Georgia, specifically around St. Simon's Island and even over towards Brunswick, Jekyll Island throughout the morning here. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But let's, like I said, talk about this area, the elephant in the room. We've all seen the models, and especially even if you are remotely in passing on social media over the last few days, you probably have already heard about this. So I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Basically, yeah, there is increasing guidance and increasing likelihood that we will have a storm and probably a hurricane east of the Bahamas, somewhere off the Caribbean, and potentially making landfall along the east coast of the United States, but also potentially staying out to sea as well. So that's really going to be the bulk of this. If you are watching specifically on YouTube and you have any questions, please put them there in the comment section. I would like to hear from you so I can answer some of those back and forth here, and I'll get to those in just a second. If you're watching on FCN Plus, thank you very much for stopping by, and as always, we appreciate watching on the FCN app. That way you can get those push notifications, especially if there's any severe weather and anytime we get these updates coming out on things like happening out here in the tropics. All right, so let's talk about this. So as I mentioned, right now a 40% chance according to the National Hurricane Center, but don't let that mislead you, because I do think that that's going to increase, and it even increased from this morning. First popped early this morning, then went up to a 30% and now a 40%. I strongly believe by Sunday, if not Sunday, Monday, we're going to have a high chance of development before this spins up. And I mean, even looking right now at satellite imagery, you can kind of see, well, first off, our area is right in here. Oops, excuse me. It's right about there. You see all the convection, but let's flip this over to enhanced infrared imagery. And if you look closely, you can kind of see a broad circulation in here. Yeah. There's definitely some troughing due to this wave coming off of the west coast of Africa. It's those thunderstorms that form up over the jungles out there, and you get a lot of that moisture. It starts to work its way towards the west, and it starts to hit those warm waters of the Atlantic. Just towards its north, though, it does have some interaction with dry air, and that's the Saharan dust. You can kind of see the Sahara Desert right there, right? And then you see all this kind of dry air spilling in off of that. So that's what's been kind of hindering storm systems so far here in July and also over towards August. But now this area is just south of it, and I do believe it's kind of found a gap, a hole in the dust, that as it moves towards the west, it's really going to continue to keep its energy embedded in that, and that's going to allow it to strengthen and intensify here. So we're going to walk through some of the models together. I'm sure if you're watching, you probably could just screen grab one of these models, post it on social, and say, oh my goodness, here's a storm coming. But my goal here is not to just take a screen capture of one specific instance of what's going to be happening out there, but give you the whole picture and break down what I'm looking at so you can stay informed and help make proper decisions here, okay? So first off, here's our area. We have initialization. That is the number one thing we're talking about tropical weather forecasting. The models struggle with initial formation and then where it's going to go after that. But if you have a broad low, Now, this is where hurricane countries even come into play. If we had a hunter flying in this and it found a defined low-level circulation, models can pick up on that. And it gives you a much more accurate representation of what the forecast is going to look like based on numerical guidance. So here you go. You can definitely see the low there, tracking its way across. Let's actually, you know what? Let's put this on a nice little loop here for you so you can continue to watch this. Come off of the coast of Africa, right there, passing over the Cape Verde Islands, passing just north of the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico, and then move on towards west. Now, keep in mind, this definitely is not the end forecast, okay? But it gives you a good idea as it passes towards the south of the Bermuda High off towards the north. But in the last few frames, you can kind of see a trough digging in from the north. And that's the big question. How strong is said trough going to be and allowing this to turn towards the north? Here's another more close look at this. The same model, the GFS. And you can see in the last few frames, it actually tries to make that turn towards the north here. Let's watch that again. So that's the good news, is that even in our latest run, our latest model runs, there has been this indication of a north turn. But just 24 hours ago, the models were indicating more like this, and then 12 hours ago like this, then like this. But they've been kind of wavering back and forth. Somewhere out in this area, though, specifically east of the Bahamas and east of Florida, maybe out towards the Carolinas. This would be the 19th. The 19th would be next Tuesday. Today is what's today? The 9th? Yes, today's the 9th. This is 10 days out. So not this Tuesday, next Tuesday. That's a long range. And most days, I probably wouldn't show this to you because it's misleading quite often. But the fact is that it has been consistent over and over again. And then we take a look at the Euro versus the GFS. So a lot of the times when we're looking 10 days out and we're seeing this, a lot of times it'll be like the GFS shows this and the European will show that. They will be completely and utterly on different pages. This is 9 days out right here. For 9 to 10 days out, having the European model, the supercomputers out of Europe, and the GFS, our supercomputers here in the United States to help give us this guidance, to be exactly in line and stacked exactly on top of each other just like that is remarkable and not common for that far out. And that is noteworthy in itself because that shows exceptional confidence in the model outlooks that this is going to develop into a storm. And the pressures from both GFS and Euro actually drop it down to about 950 millibars, which indicates a Cat 2 to Cat 3 hurricane based on the current guidance. So this is not to say that a hurricane is steaming due west towards the Bahamas and Florida. I'm just telling you that confidence is building that there is going to be a storm out there. I think we have to wait just to get a little bit more data out of that initialization, and we want to look at this high pressure ridge towards the north and how it's going to interact with both of these areas. Now, this is the GFS versus the ECMWF operational models. I want to continue to show you some of the data that I look at when I'm making these forecasts, especially with the long-range guidance, because this is ensembles with the GFS. And the ensembles is basically these pretty operational models I show you that show the circulation. It's what we always use on TV. Well, within that, and if we keep on talking about the supercomputers, because those actually put out like this many runs. See every single one of those circles? They are a different run within one specific model output. And then that all gets averaged together and you see what I was just showing you a second ago. So this is looking kind of under the hood of the engine of some of these weather models. And it shows you that there is high confidence that there is going to be something east of the United States. But here's the good news. The GFS, all those operational models, all those ensemble models, I should say, do keep it just offshore into the east. And that is because it's really indicating the Bermuda High weakening a little bit and causing that recurvature to happen a little bit sooner. And it's really all about that. It's all about the strength of that Bermuda High. And if you go back, and I think this is our saving grace, to be honest. Let's go back to this real quick, is the map. Because remember that little area I mentioned in the mid-Atlantic, and I said, oh yeah, there's that low 30% chance. You know, I don't expect that to really develop into anything significant, the one in yellow there. But what it's doing, it is helping to degrade the Bermuda High, and potentially just enough to allow a trough to pass by sometime around the 19th to the 20th and hook this, kind of like you're fishing. We all know about that in Florida, right? You're out there fishing, you throw your line and you hook something, you pull it up. That hopefully is going to be this trough kind of hooking our storm and pulling it up towards the north. So the exact position and strength depends on where this Bermuda High is going to be and allowing it to turn towards the north. Now, all guidance really, even if it does come on shore, it's more so towards the Carolinas or towards the northeast, or maybe into the Canadian Maritimes, which brings me to this. Speta's thoughts right here. These are my thoughts on this, just my thoughts, okay? This is not an official forecast, but my thoughts. A landfall somewhere along the U.S. East Coast, I would give it, at least at this time, about a 40%. This all adds up to 100%, by the way. Out to sea, I would say it's probably about 50% chance. Now, less likely, maybe the Canadian Maritimes, talking about you, Newfoundland. The Gulf, I would say 3%. Yesterday, there was a model or two that put it into the Gulf, but based on that Bermuda High weakening and a trough kicking on by, the Bermuda High would have to be a solid ridge, and we would have to be seeing like already plenty of sunshine over the state of Florida. We're not seeing that. So that would allow things to turn towards north. And this just dissipating and falling apart and nothing happening from it, it's possible, but I would give it about a 2% chance. It's definitely on the low side. So the highest likelihood is this stays out to sea, stays towards the east, is a big rip current threat. Some good old waves out there. We all know those type of storms. The secondary possibility here is that it tracks close enough to the coast where it does make a landfall, just based on the position of that high pressure ridge. Now, when we talk about intensity, and I mentioned this earlier, was the Saharan dust. You can see that in red, but you can also see where the where our moisture is. It's right there. So let's rewind our screen a little bit, and right there, you can see it coming off of the coastline of Africa. And then let's look this ahead. You can see that spin continuing, and then it ends up right about there. So it's kind of fighting off that Saharan dust based on the guidance here. It has that moisture. The dust surrounds it and hopefully penetrates it and kind of keeps it relatively weak instead of explosively intensifying. But it looks like, per the guidance right now, it doesn't absolutely destroy this in a weekend it out. Saharan dust does typically, that's what it does. It allows dry air to enter these storm systems, blocks out a little bit of sunlight, even just overall weakens them out. On the other side of things, sea surface temperatures are exceptionally warm. I mean, look around the coast of Florida. There are spots nearly 90 degrees, especially off of the west coast. And then we pull back the picture. Yeah, you can see even extending out through the Caribbean. We got temperatures into the mid-80s there. So the closer this gets to the Bahamas and everything, the warmer those waters are going to be and the more conducive they are for tropical cyclone development. 86 to 87 is definitely more than enough. Much more. You need 80. You need 80 degrees for a good solid tropical storm. If you get up closer to 90, my goodness, look at the Gulf. Look around the Bahamas right now. Those pinks are at 90 degrees. That is alarmingly warm. So if we had this area get close to any of those exceptionally warm sea surface temperatures, that would allow for some decent intensification. Here's the deal, though, and I already feel people commenting, well, it's another storm. It's August. This happens. And yeah, it does. And actually, this right here, it looks like one of those model outputs, but this is the August origin for tropical systems and based on climatology, the average since we started keeping records of everything going on out here. And it does show you where these storms typically form out from, where this area is right now, and then it tracks towards the west, around the Caribbean, or turns off towards the north. Those are just kind of the likelihoods. So based on the operational models, the ensembles, everything we're seeing right now, and climatology on top of that, I am fairly confident for saying right now, yep, we are going to have a storm, probably a hurricane. Just depends on when, where, and how strong. Those are the number one questions. We're also getting towards that peak of hurricane season, so hey, having a storm out there in mid-August is not unheard of nor surprising, right? All right, so let me answer a few questions if we have any here on our YouTube channel. Janet says, time to keep a good old eye on Mother Nature. I agree with you. I don't know what Shia is trying to say here. One model projects it making landfall on Florida on August 20th. Yeah, I did see yesterday there was some guidance. And I'm only showing the CMC and the European here, but the Canadian model as well has been kind of pushing it closer to a landfall. The European has been releasing their AI model. It's kind of this new guidance based on, initial conditions and where it typically happens. Has been exceptionally close, but not quite at landfall. It's just been skirting the coast, which is why I showed you those ensembles here just a second ago to give you a good broad idea of where the models are thinking of and kind of the split between them. But good point, Shia. Let's see. And Shia, you have another question. Will my mom be okay? She lives in a trailer outside of Jacksonville. Here's the deal, at least at this time, it's way too early to say something like that. Right now, I am trying to give you as much information. I don't like holding back. I don't like holding back information in the spirit of not alarming you. You're all adults here. You can all understand this as well as long as I give you the information available. I can't tell you. If anybody says, yeah, in your house on the 20th, over a week and a half from now, it's going to impact specific home, they're full of it. So I'm telling you as much as I know right now, and I know that there's probably going to be a storm east of Florida, but coming on shore or staying out to sea, as I just showed you a second ago, there's that 40 to 50% chance of out to sea or on shore. I think that is going to be one of the things that you really want to keep a close eye on, is just basically that long range outlook. And the closer we get, the more details we'll be able to get, and then you'll be able to make those proper plans for yourself and your mother there. But very good question, Shannon. And I think at this point, you want to keep a close eye on it. Now, if it's on the west side of town, more often than not, as long as you're away from the coast, you're fine. So even in a trailer or a double wide or anything like that, unless we get a full-on storm barreling down on us. So, yeah, that's some of the questions on here in our comment section on YouTube thus far. I do want to shift gears a little bit. Of course, we're talking about the tropics in this area out here, but also I want to talk about our local weather across the First Coast, because there has been this big trough out here, just bringing rounds and rounds of rainfall. In fact, let's zoom in on our friends in Brunswick, even out towards Savannah. This moisture has been pumping on shore. I know Jacksonville had some showers around 4 to 5 a.m. This morning. And yeah, even right now, you can actually see right there in the Arlington area, extending down towards Green Cove, Springs, even out just west of Nocatee. We have some passing showers, but we did actually have flood advisories. It looks like they were canceled at 10:30, but we had a flood advisory in place for Brunswick for like 5 hours this morning because of this persistent moisture flow coming on shore. And let's put this in a loop and you can kind of see what I'm talking. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back 5 hours and now let's loop it. Bam. All right. So let's hit play on this. See it load up. And yeah, here you go. Nice little training effect was taking place there around St. Simon's Island, Jekyll Island, Brunswick. And that's the issue with this trough overhead and these rounds of rainfall we're seeing out here. It's not one local storm, nor is it like your isolated afternoons. It's these trainings that we could be seeing here. And as we go ahead through the afternoon, a lot of these are going to creep a little bit further towards the south, including into the Jacksonville area. So here's another look with that big old trough and kind of the flow going around it. And you can see on the north side of that trough, that wind's getting pushed on shore. So it's really the Carolinas, southeastern areas of Georgia, Nassau County, Duval County, and northeast Florida seeing kind of the most of the rainfall here today, tomorrow, and even over towards Monday. While if you're on the west coast, it's south of that trough, and it kind of feels like a big tropical system, right? Well, south of that trough around Tampa, St. Pete area, all the way down towards our southwest coastlines, that's where you're going to be looking at some of the heaviest precipitation. So it gives you a good idea of where those highest flood risks are, where you could see about 3 to 5 total inches when this is all said and done. And yeah, right here, you can kind of see on our future cast as we go ahead through this evening, those showers kicking on by. Then again, Sunday morning into the afternoon, you got more rounds of rain. And then I have that low annotated kind of indicating the heart of this trough. And then by Monday, the winds start to shift in from the south as that low moves further towards the west. And by Tuesday, we start to get back in kind of this standard weather pattern. So the weekend, it's not complete wash, but definitely on and off areas of showers with local storms that could be producing some flooding due to the persistent nature of them. So, hey, let's talk football. Jags are in town. First preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the game starts at 7, but maybe you want to do a little tailgating. Well, if you're out there at the tailgaters parking lot, just remember, hopefully you're with somebody who has a nice one of those umbrellas, nice little pop-up tent or something like that. One, to protect you from the sun on most days, but today it's to keep you out of the rain and all of your burkers and all that out of the rain. Because right now it's sunshine out there, but I don't want you to head out the door and be totally surprised by the time you get there and some of these storms do develop. Okay, we're going to be looking at some showers, maybe even the possibility of a thunderstorm in the area sometime between 3 and 6 o'clock. So definitely going to be having an impact. Thus the weather impact alert in place. Voila. For the game, by 7, a lot of those storms are going to start to march further towards the west. And I do anticipate it to be soggy during the game, wet, rainy, obviously, but at least the lightning starts to taper off by that point. And as long as there's no lightning, this game against the Steelers will be able to go on as scheduled. Personally, I played football in high school. I loved playing in the rain. I think it's definitely the big equalizer, and it makes for a funner game. The run games are going to have to kind of show off their skills with this, but I think it'll be making for an interesting game. A lot of turnovers and all that. But overall, yeah, this tropical atmosphere is going to continue to dominate. You pull back the picture. Of course, we're going to continue to keep an eye out there in the Atlantic. You can see that bowling ball rolling across the central Atlantic here, being that next system we're going to continue to keep a very close eye on. And of course, if that did develop, that would let's say that did point straight at the coastline of Florida and southeast Georgia. Let's say, in theory, this is our 7-day outlook. It wouldn't be here until Tuesday and Wednesday beyond the 7-day. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how far and how long range this is at this time. It is still way out there. For the time being, we're continuing to deal with this tropical trough overhead that's bringing these scattered showers across the first coast and obviously some passing rain, maybe a few thunderstorms for the Jags game here as you go ahead through your Saturday afternoon. So yeah, I got like one more minute here just to talk real quick. And Heather Smith just jumped on and said it is currently storming in the Regency area. So there you go. I just mentioned Arlington had a local shower, and that's the thing. That's the issue over the first coast today. It is this big trough that is overhead that's going to bring these rounds of rain that are only going to last a few minutes at a time, in some cases, and then move on. In other cases, we could have one round of rain and then another round of rain and another round of rain, and that's where it brings that areas of flooding. So thank you very much, Heather, for jumping in and letting me know your current conditions. And Heather and everybody else around the First Coast, check out our FCN Weather Watchers. Just type in FCN Storm on Facebook. You can send us any photos of what's happening in your area so we can use them on here, and even here in these updates, especially if you get something really interesting. I mean, it can be just a football game or your dog, but also I like seeing those pictures of the storms out there. So, yeah, we're going to continue to keep you posted as always. We'll be back this evening with another look at the tropics as well as the news at 6 o'clock. And make sure you stop by Hurricane Central at firstcoastnews.com, because all the graphics I've used in here, plus a breakdown and discussion about this area out there in the Atlantic, is all there as well if you're just looking for more information. I'm meteorologist Robert Speta, and as always, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoy your day. Decent conditions and temperatures into the mid to high 80s. But at the same time, within those showers, especially where they do set up and you get a bit of training, we could be looking at some localized flooding with the spots, especially along the coast, seeing upwards about 3